use Casey for that.
And I never hear from her. I was like, wait a
I
second,
talked
I'm
to
gonna go.
myself.
That's all right, we all do it, something else.
At my full-time job, one of the guys just laughed. I'll be doing something, because I'm usually there by myself, and so I forget when he's there.
Good
he
evening,
likes to work.
and welcome to the West Milton Council meeting for July 13th, 2021. I'm Scott Hurst, and Mayor Miller's out tonight. If everyone would please stand with me and do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then stay standing for the invocation by Reverend Robbie Scott of the Huffman UMC. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Holy God, we give you thanks for this day. We thank you for the rains in our fields. We thank you for the sun shining warm in our face. We thank you for this time we could gather. We ask you to be present, to grant your wisdom in all that is decided, and bless this fair village that it may know your favor, that all who live here make it home may know your peace. Be with the first responders and our military as they continue to serve behind the scenes and sometimes in front of the scenes, and keep them under your care. We ask all this in Christ's name. Amen.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Hurst,
Here.
Dews,
Here.
Cobb,
Here?
Horn,
Here.
Tracy,
Here.
and Metz.
Here.
Thank you. Council should have received minutes for the June 8th council meeting and the June 22nd special council meeting and council workshop. Do I have you review the minutes, and is there any motions?
Mr. Mayor, or Vice Mayor, I would like to make a motion to approve minutes from the June 8th meeting and also the June 22nd meeting as written.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Dews,
Yes.
Cobb,
Yes.
Hurst,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Metz,
Yes.
and Tracy.
Yes.
On the June 22nd meeting, Councilmember Metz was absent. Are there any motions to excuse Councilmember Metz?
I'd like to make a motion to excuse Councilmember Metz for the June 22nd meeting.
Thank you.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Dews,
Yes.
Cobb,
Yes.
Hurst,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Metz,
Yes.
and Tracy.
Yes.
Is there any correspondence to the council, Mr. Manager?
There is none received.
All right, thank you. Is there any comments from citizens regarding tonight's legislation? Seeing none, we'll move on to the ordinances or resolutions. CM-21-18, Ms. Brosh?
May I?
Yes, please.
This is simply legislation that establishes a specific fund for the federal relief that we expect to receive from the pandemic. It was suggested that in terms of auditing and accounting, it would make sense to have a separate fund established. I consulted with the finance director, and we both agree it makes sense to do that. Therefore, we have this legislation to present to you.
All right, thank you.
And is it still to be determined how much will flow in?
Yeah, I hope we get it sooner rather than later, because every estimate I see is less than the one before that.
Right, okay.
All right.
It's a resolution establishing the American Rescue Plan Grant Fund and affirming that funds received by the municipality pursuant to the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 shall be used only to cover costs incurred by the municipality of West Milton, Ohio, consistent with the requirements of the Act and applicable law and regulations. Whereas the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, known as ARP, a $1.9 trillion economic COVID-19 stimulus package was signed into law on March 11, 2021. And whereas the ARP provides monetary relief to address the continued impact of COVID-19 on the economy, public health, state and local governments, individuals, and businesses. And whereas as part of the ARP package, $350 billion in funding is being provided to state and local governments, as well as additional funding for other areas, including but not limited to education, rental assistance, and transit. And whereas the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act requires separate accountability through use of separate funds for direct recipients as well as subrecipients of federal awards greater than $25,000. And whereas ORC Section 5705.09 requires political subdivisions to establish separate funds for each class of revenue derived from a source other than the general property tax, which the law, including federal programs, requires to be used for a particular purpose. And whereas ORC Section 5705.12 further requires the taxing authority of a political subdivision to establish, with the approval of the Auditor of State, a separate fund for money derived from specified sources other than the general property tax. And whereas the Auditor of State has approved taxing authorities to establish the separate funds required for separate accountability of federal programs upon adoption of a local resolution. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the Municipality of West Milton, Ohio, that Section 1, this council hereby establishes a special revenue fund titled the American Rescue Plan Grant Fund. The purposes of such fund shall be to account for revenues and expenditures related to the funds received by the municipality through the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Section 2, this council affirms that all funds received pursuant to the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 and deposited into said American Rescue Plan Grant Fund will be expended consistent with the requirements of the ARP and any other applicable law, regulations, and guidance. Section 3, the Municipality of West Milton, Ohio's Finance Director is hereby authorized to submit any documentation necessary to receive funds pursuant to the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Should be Section 4. I think I reversed it. It says Section 6. This resolution shall take effect immediately upon its passage.
All right, thank you. Manager Sheridan, would you like to add anything else to that, or?
I do not. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
Okay. Do we need to amend the section, or?
You can, when you do the motion, well, yeah, amend the section first.
All right. All right, since we need to amend the way this is written, and it says Section 6 instead of Section 4.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to amend this ordinance where it says Section 6 should be Section 4.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Dews.
Yes.
Cobb. Yes. Hurst.
Yes.
Horn.
Yes.
Metz.
Yes.
And Tracy.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Are there any additional questions from council? Any questions from the public? Are there any motions?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I make a motion that we accept Resolution CM 21-18 as amended.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Dews.
Yes.
Cobb.
Yes.
Hurst.
Yes.
Horn.
Yes.
Metz.
Yes.
And Tracy.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Next is CM-21-19, a resolution authorizing the municipal manager to accept contract change orders. Ms. Brosh?
This is
Or-
similar to what we discussed in the past, the Ludlow Hills project. We anticipate there will be additional change orders, and simply authorizes me to execute those.
Thank you. Ms. Brosh?
It's a resolution authorizing the municipal manager to accept contract change orders from VTF Excavation LLC of Salina, Ohio, for the construction of the Ludlow Falls Sanitary Sewer Project. Whereas on August 11, 2020, council passed Resolution CM-20-24, authorizing the municipal manager to enter into a contract with VTF Excavation LLC for the construction of the Ludlow Falls Sanitary Sewer Project in the amount of $2,693,037.79. And whereas on June 8, 2021, council passed Resolution CM-21-15, authorizing the acceptance of 2 contract change orders received from VTF. And whereas VTF has now submitted a 3rd contract change order. And whereas the total budget for the Ludlow Sanitary Sewer Project contains an amount of $457,250 in contingencies. And whereas council has already approved additional payments totaling $98,275.46 pursuant to the passage of Resolution CM-21-15. And whereas council believes that there may be more change orders in the future, and that these changes will be necessary in order to continue with the construction of the Ludlow Falls Sanitary Sewer Project. Now therefore be it resolved by the council of the municipality of West Milton, Ohio, that Section 1, the municipal manager is hereby authorized and directed to accept contract change orders from VTF Excavation LLC within the municipal manager's discretion that he finds to be necessary for the construction of the Ludlow Falls Sanitary Sewer Project in an amount not to exceed $358,974.54. Section 2, this resolution shall take effect and be in full force from and after its passage.
Thank you. Any questions by council?
So we just did this a month ago, right? And I think I asked at the time, are there going to be any more change orders? And the answer was kind of, well, maybe, we don't know. And I asked what the original contract said, and I didn't really get a real good answer for that. But I don't think we have enough information to just cut loose $358,000. I think that they bid a project, and unless we ask for a change, then they should do the project according to their bid.
If it helps, we're still within the budget of the project, and we have $300,000 in contingencies that are not part of this change order.
I understand.
So my understanding is the changes that have been made have been mutual. I can get more information, certainly if that's what the council wants. I'm sorry, I did not bring that to the meeting tonight.
I understand that we're within budget, but if I am VTF Excavation, then I know that there's $358,000 available for me, and that isn't necessarily a good thing, a good position for us to be in or for them to be in. I want to keep them honest.
My understanding is they're being kept honest by Tim and the staff that's overseeing the project, but I understand your concern. If you want more details, we can bring those to the next workshop.
So you're not able to provide any detail what has changed for this amount to be this large?
No, I apologize. Ben asked if he needed to be here tonight, and I said he did not. Now, on hindsight, I wish I had asked him to attend. I apologize. I don't.
But the
I've
resolution,
deferred-
I'm sorry.
No, I've deferred to, I have not been hands-on as much on that project, and Mr. Herron and Tim have. So I don't, I'm sorry.
But the resolution is just authorizing you to approve any future change orders, not those already received.
That's my
Correct.
understanding.
So the gatekeeper is still Tim and Ben and then you,
Correct.
and you'll advise us of whatever those changes will be anyway, at least in our, so this is just us giving you authorization to sign off on them if they're.
Not approving, right.
Right.
I can tell you this, that the contingency, for example, we're already talking about doing some additional paving. So they're not anticipating any other changes that would eat into the contingencies. Probably the only concern that I have received from citizens in the Ludlow Falls area is damage to some of the streets that weren't specifically as a part of the project, where the trucks were going over that. But when I looked into it, what I found is those roads were not in the best shape to begin with, and so we're going to be doing some cost sharing with Ludlow Falls, where they're going to kick in some money to fix the roads because they weren't in great shape before, and we're going to try to put some additional funds in there to repair them right, so that when we leave the projects, the community's in better shape. But I'll be happy to get more details if that's what you prefer.
Councilmember Horn, I would add there is on the third whereas, it says VTF has now submitted a third contract change order. We don't know what that is or for how much, but they have submitted another change order. And we anticipate more, it sounds like.
Yeah. Okay, so it does say it's.
Yeah, so we approved 2 a month ago, now there's a
Right.
third one, we think there may be more.
Gotcha.
I mean, Ben and Tim are pretty smart and knowledgeable with stuff. I'm guessing that they're on that
Yeah.
project and overseeing that, and knowing Ben at least, I don't know, I think he would throw up a red light if he saw something going down that he thought was wrong.
I certainly agree, but I also want the council to
Yeah.
be comfortable with any change orders that are approved. And so I don't believe there's a timeline that doesn't permit me to bring that information back to you at the next workshop.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right.
Is this something we can table until the next meeting then?
Is it possible to approve that in the workshop if we,
If you
Have
did
a
it.
special meeting.
that special, that's what I thought. Is it possible to pass it contingent upon discussion at the workshop? Is that possible? So that I can get them more information, And obviously, I wouldn't carry through with it if they didn't want it done. I'm just trying to, if there is going to be a problem with waiting a whole month, I wasn't thinking that long of a time.
Yeah, I don't want to just flat say, no, we're not
No, I
paying
know.
you, but
No, I
I need
think
more
it's-
information.
And I have
Which-
no problem with that, Counselor. I think that makes sense, and I apologize that I did not have Mr. Aaron here tonight.
Judge, we can let the newspaper know that we're just going to have a special meeting, so then that way you can
Okay,
vote on it.
let's do that.
then.
We'll
You
just
can
wait.
table it and do it then.
Let's table it, and we'll do it then.
Make a motion.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to table Resolution CM 2119 until our next meeting.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Hughes,
Yes.
Cobb,
Yes.
Hurst,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Metz,
Yes.
and Tracy.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Next is CM-21-20. It's a resolution authorizing Chapter 11 plan of the reorganization of Purdue Pharma LP.
I'm going to defer this one to the law director.
I know I sent some reading material to you guys. It is confusing, I'll give you that, but there was a lawsuit filed against Purdue Pharma. Purdue Pharma filed bankruptcy, and the Chapter 11 is to figure out how they're going to distribute funds. They're putting them into different trusts for different individuals. Municipalities are one of those. It's in regards to how they were manufacturing and distributing opioids and how this affected all the municipalities and other entities, obviously, but municipalities is one of those. So one of the restructuring is to put some money into a trust where the municipalities are entitled to some of that money based on how it affected their communities. And there are certain requirements for that, which is in detail in that document, but for the most part, this right here, we have to cast a ballot. It is due tomorrow, but I can do an e-ballot, so that's fine, to let them know if we accept their Chapter 11 plan or if we don't approve their Chapter 11 plan. In regards to the information I'm receiving from other municipalities, I haven't seen anybody who's not accepting it. Not to say that they're out there, but I haven't seen anybody on the forum that I'm on saying that they're not accepting it.
All right, thank you. All right, I guess the next part is the reading of said resolution.
Yes. It's a resolution authorizing recommendation to accept the Fifth Amended Joint Chapter 11 Plan of Reorganization of Purdue Pharma LP in the United States Bankruptcy Court for the Southern District of New York, case number 19-23649. Whereas on July 20th, 2020, the municipality of West Milton, Ohio joined the consolidated claim, which filed a proof of claim in the Chapter 11 Plan of Reorganization referenced in the caption of this resolution, the bankruptcy, pertaining to distribution of opioids by Purdue Pharma that was a significant cause of the national opioid crisis that led to mass addiction and overdose deaths that affected both the state of Ohio and the municipality of West Milton. And whereas a mediated settlement proposal was reached with the creditor constituencies in the bankruptcy, including public and private creditors. And whereas the law director and the municipal manager recommend that council vote to approve the Fifth Amended Joint Chapter 11 Plan of Reorganization of Purdue Pharma, which is the bankruptcy settlement, as reflected in the master ballot in the bankruptcy and incorporated by reference herein. Now therefore be it resolved by the council of the municipality of West Milton, Ohio, that Section 1, council hereby accepts the recommendation of the municipal manager and law director and authorizes approval of the bankruptcy settlement on behalf of the municipality on or before the July 14th, 2021 deadline. Section 2, the municipal manager is hereby authorized and directed to accept the Fifth Amended Joint Chapter 11 Plan of Reorganization of Purdue Pharma LP and its affiliated debtors by directing the law director to file the vote by e-ballot as an authorized agent. Section 3, the municipal manager is hereby authorized to take all steps necessary to resolve these matters in accordance with the terms of the bankruptcy settlement. Switched them again. Section 4, this resolution shall take effect and be in full force from and after its passage.
Thank you. All right, seeing Section 4 should be Section 6.
Section 6.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to amend this resolution, that Section 6 should read Section 4.
Thank you.
Second.
Roll call?
Hughes,
Yes.
Cobb,
Yes.
Hurst,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Metz,
Yes.
and Tracy.
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any questions by council about this resolution?
I do have a question. So if we vote for this, we might get money out of the bankruptcy settlement.
Yes.
And
I
if we
can
don't-
tell you, when we filed the consolidated claim, because we could file an individual and our consolidated one, we went with the consolidated one. We were given a number, and I don't know how they generated the numbers. They told us this is the number you put in to say what your claim is. This was like $1.3 million. So do we expect to get that? No. But, I mean, hopefully we'll get something out of it.
So if we don't vote for this, we'll probably get nothing. Unless we file on our own.
That's a possibility, yes.
Did you say 1.3 million or billion?
Million.
That was good.
All right, thanks. Any other questions by council? Any questions from citizens? Seeing none? All right, are there any motions?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to accept resolution CM-21-20 as written, no, as amended.
Second.
Thanks. Roll call, please.
Dews.
Yes.
Cobb.
Yes.
Kurtz.
Yes,
Horn.
Yes.
Metz.
Yes.
And Tracy.
Yes.
thank you.
And I'll do that e-ballot first thing in the morning, so.
All right, thank you. Next is CM-21-21. It's an ordinance amending section 51.23 sewer tap fees and special line assessments.
These next two ordinances are recommendations that I'm making to you to add a 15% administrative fee to both sewer and water meters. It's a small amount, but I think it's a step in the right direction. The water utility especially could use the additional revenue. I think it's important to point out this would not impact our current customers in any way, shape, or form. This additional fee will be paid by new homeowners when they purchase their sewer and water meter. Right now, we sell the meters for exactly what we pay for them. This will add a little bit of additional revenue, and we're only talking $20,000 or $30,000 based on the 160 homes that will be built on the south side. So it won't happen all at once, it'll be over time. And it's really only the first step. I would anticipate, and I think I've mentioned before, that I hope to do a rate study on both the sewer and water utilities, and this would just be a step in that right direction. I would also add that from my perspective, this is the first step in trying to manage and make the growth pay for itself.
Thank you.
And I would consider this really an introduction. I don't expect you to pass it tonight. Certainly, if you wish to, you can. I think it's something you consider, look over. Hopefully, when we get to talk one-on-one, we can talk a little bit more about it. And so it'll only affect if we sell a couple of meters between now and the next meeting. So it's not a huge amount, but I think it's an important first step.
All right.
It'll need 2 readings anyway, right?
Yeah, because it's an emergency.
Right. But whether you passed it tonight on the first reading or not, that was not, there's no deadline per se that I needed it passed by a certain time.
All right, thanks.
All right?
My only concern with a first reading is it's not really complete, because in
Because of this.
section 3,
Oh,
we don't
okay.
know what fund it's going to go into.
Okay.
All right,
So if you want to table it, that's probably a better idea till we figure out.
Yes. I'm
what
sorry if I
fund it's
didn't make
going
that
to.
clear.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Please.
So if I'm buying a new house,
Yep.
then what normally would my water meter cost me? And
It would
then,
depend on the size of the meter.
so typically though,
Typically, it would be, right page here. For a 5/8, it would be $315.85. For a 1-inch, $400.95.
so we're talking about $40, $70 additional per household? Okay.
When you get into much larger meters, and we will have some of those with the commercial and customers, 4-inch meter is close to $4,000. Okay?
Thank you. Are there any motions on this?
I keep wanting to say mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we table ordinance CM-21-21.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Dues,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Hertz,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Mitz,
Yes.
and Tracy.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is CM-21-22. It's an ordinance amending section 52.142, service connection fees and special line assessments.
It's the same thing, sewer and water. So you've got both. That's why there's two different ordinances.
All
So
right.
it's the same principle and same 15%.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I'll make a motion that we table ordinance CM-21-22.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Dues,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Hertz,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Mitz,
Yes.
and Tracy.
Yes.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that the Council of West Milton formally authorizes D. Jeffrey Sheridan, Village Manager, to be added to all of the West Milton Community Improvement Corporation accounts, including the Huntington Bank account.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Dues,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Hertz,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Mitz,
Yes.
and Tracy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Some explanation, if you're not aware, the village is behind in its reporting requirements to the state. And to complete that, I needed bank statements. And so Huntington Bank required ordinance where the previous manager left and a copy of the ordinance where I was appointed. And I took those over and they said, well, you need one more. It has to specifically say you can be added to the bank account because right now there's only one signatory and that was the previous manager. So that is why that language was asked to be put in the minutes so I can take it to Huntington Bank and they'll give me a copy of the CD.
All right, thank you. All right, next is the manager's report.
You have my written report and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions, council?
You did mention you got an update on the village's street lighting. Can you share with us what that is?
I did. We still have some lights that have not been converted to LEDs, although not very many. So I got a good education from Mr. Stolman, and we did have an issue with an outage. And so, yeah, I would hope to convert the last few lights over to LED. It's much less expensive. And then also start looking at street lighting as part of the amenities as we're trying to improve the look of the village. Street lighting can be an important way to do that. So I've used more decorative street lighting and more consistent decorative street lighting in other communities, and I think that's something we may look at for like the downtown and special areas of the community.
Thanks.
I had a question about the preparing for the code enforcement sweep. Can you give us a little
Sure.
more detail on that?
Code enforcement, as the council dictated, is a pretty high priority. It has not been given the proper attention for quite some time. So in an effort to play some catch-up, I've used sweeps in the past. I've asked all of the staff, I've asked the elected officials, and also the police department to get me a list of those egregious examples of situations where we know it's happened for quite some time, but no one has done anything about it. And we're going to try, staff and I, in that week, well, let me back up a step. Once I said exactly when we're going to do it, I would expect to do a press release a couple of weeks in advance and say, folks, if you know your yard needs cleaned up, here's your chance, get it done. Because on this week, we're going to be going to all those homes, meeting with you, explaining why you're in violation, and giving you probably a week.
Yes.
Giving you the time that the ordinance requires to make the cleanup. And so I've talked to the chief. I'm going to work with the police department to try to make sure we get through to as many homeowners as we can that you may not have kept up with the ordinance in the past, but we need you to start doing that. And it won't knock them all out, but I'm hoping to knock a large number of them out. Does that make sense, I hope?
Yeah.
It's
sounds good.
wonderful, wonderful.
Can you give any like specific examples of code violations that people can maybe start?
Yeah, I mean, the ordinance, there's quite a list of what.
Or ones maybe that you've seen that,
Well, yeah,
Or most
I've seen a backyard that's probably half full of junk, and a swimming pool that's not been swam in this year, is about half full and full of mosquitoes. Those kinds of issues that I know the neighbors have to be frustrated that those problems haven't been resolved. And so it's not easy to try to catch up for a lack of attention in the past. 1 week won't do it, but we'll knock some out as much as we can, and then continue to work every week a little bit at a time as we get complaints. Probably the biggest issue is if you let the community know that if you complain, something might actually happen now. And so I encourage folks to let me know of their issues in their neighborhood. I would encourage folks to, if you're willing to put your name on it, that makes a difference. Anonymous complaints will be looked at, but those are a two-edged sword. So just because you tell me your name doesn't mean I'm going to go tell your neighbor you're the one that told on them, but it makes it more valid, at least in my experience. So, any other questions?
And so what'll be the procedure during the sweep as far as notification and time to remedy?
Depends on the violation. Different violations have different timelines. Basically, normally it's a week is the quickest you have to comply. If I remember correctly, there may be some that go as much as 30 days. But you go out, knock on the door, try to talk to them, make them understand why there's a problem, what exactly they're in violation of, and give them the written notice that they've been notified you have 1 week, depending on what the issue is, to rectify it. If you don't, the village will come in and clean it up or mow it or do whatever needs to be done. Part of the problem with doing a lot at once is we've only got so many employees, and we can't, if we come out of that week with 20 properties that need mowed or cleaned up, we're not going to be able to knock those out quickly. So, it's really important to try to get folks to clean up their own property. We don't want to send our guys in to do it any more than they want us to, because it's expensive.
Sure.
Well, I believe a ripple effect will happen as soon as people get word that, hey, we mean business, we want to clean our town up, we want to take some pride in our town, that I'm hoping people will start to maybe clean up on their own and not wait for
Sure.
a knock on the door.
I hope so.
What's been your experience in the past in other communities? Because I kind of see it going the other direction for some.
You're going to get
not gonna do it.
pushback.
Right.
You're going to,
Oh, yeah.
you're definitely going to get some pushback.
Right.
Perhaps, it's very difficult to generalize, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some folks who don't believe they're in violation. And you'd say, well, yeah, you are. No, that guy's in violation. His yard's a lot worse than mine. Yeah, it is, but so is yours. Yours doesn't meet the code either. So you'll get some folks that are happy, I'm sure, but you'll also get some folks that, no, my yard's not that bad. Why are you picking on me? And so,
Yeah.
Especially since it hasn't been a priority. So
right.
it seems like tone and approach is very important. And if so you're saying you're planning on using service employees to knock on doors in general?
I'm going to be
You are?
knocking.
Okay.
Yeah, that's going to be me
Okay.
for the most part. And most of it is first explain why there's a
Right.
problem.
Yeah,
Most cases, it's going to be really obvious, but the first step should always be education.
sure.
Here's a copy of the ordinance, here's what the problem is, you need to get it cleaned up, and if you're cooperative, I would expect to, okay, a week's not enough, okay, you get it done in 2 weeks, if you agree to that, you sign this, we'll give you 2 weeks to clean it up.
Right.
Thank you, Jeff. It's awesome.
Are there like 97 different ordinances, or are there 3 or 4?
If there was only 97, it'd be really easy, there's a lot. And they're sometimes conflicting, sometimes they're not all in the same place. I'll probably have to focus on 3 or 4 major areas to begin with, because there's some that we need to make some changes to and updates, and I don't want to get into, I want to try to enforce the ones that are clearly in violation, where there's no question that the ordinance makes it clear you got to do this. And then we'll start dealing with the others.
All right, thank you.
just to kind of piggyback off of that, on the flip side, remember how we used to do the community pride awards? Were most of you here?
Yeah.
You, maybe? And then we just kind of stopped. We would choose like 3 people per month and give them a community pride award. We'd put a sign in their yard.
Sure.
And I really liked that, and I thought it promoted, you know, the upkeep of your property. I don't know. What do you guys think about implementing that again?
You
Like, did you
reinstate it?
like it?
Yeah, I liked it.
I did too, and we would bring them in during a council meeting. We would award them a plaque and
Sure.
take their picture. I would love to get that going again.
Positive reinforcement is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I would, I've not done that, but I think it's a great idea.
I mean, I'm sure those signs are hidden somewhere in the office.
So I wasn't on council then. Was it because we ran out of people to
No,
award
I don't,
to?
well, we would always take a
I-
break
You
in
know,
the winter.
Sure.
And then we just one spring never started it back up, and we never, I don't know, or explained why, but we just stopped. So
Yep.
I say we start it back up.
I agree.
Okay.
Any other questions for the manager?
One other idea just came to mind, press release for cleanup.
Yes, sir.
Instead of a cold byline, so to speak, what about a letter from council? Talking about positive reinforcement
Okay.
that carried our signatures at the bottom. We can approve the text, anybody can write it, it doesn't matter. But instead of just saying, on this date, code enforcement is going to take place in town, get stuff, it can be maybe worded in a more community-oriented type
Sure.
way, and then we all can sign it, and that way, when it goes out in the paper, it's, hey, we're having, this.
I think that's a great idea. If I'm understanding you correctly, something to the effect that you've made this a priority and you've directed the village manager to do these things, and this is why it's important.
Right.
And yeah, have you sign it, and that goes in, I'd be happy if you want to draft it, or I can try to come up with some language. My goal, I'd like to give folks at least a 2-week notice before we actually go out. I'm hoping to actually do the sweep sometime in August, so we're getting there. So in terms of timing, if you have some suggestions, yeah, I think that'd be fine. It's important that the community understand this is what you want representing them.
Right.
And I would guess, again, most of the people are going to be happy, but you won't have everybody happy.
No.
And I don't just mean people you know are violators. It's ones that, yeah, it's longtime citizens who thinks their yard looks fine, and it's the other guy's yard that doesn't look fine. And every time I've done that, you run into this. And that's why I'm making you aware of it.
Right, and I would figure, because I know I would feel the way, it just feels, I don't know, it feels wrong in some ways to have, government telling you got to do this with your property. So I understand that in the city, we've got to do that.
Sure.
But some people will feel that way,
Correct.
and they will be offended. And even if they are in violation and know it, it'll just sit wrong with them because of that. So maybe having this at the outset will help some of that, I don't know.
I agree.
Any additional questions?
I have a question, but not involving code enforcement. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. The paving schedule for this year, on the schedule, we have a pretty lengthy project on Main Street. Are we going to send out correspondence to the people who live on Main Street so that way they can plan with that paving project?
Yes. I would assume Mr. Herron was planning to do that based on my conversations with him, but if he's not, we will.
Okay. Do we have a ballpark yet? Or I know we kind of said after the 4th of July, no later than August.
Ben's going to be at every meeting from here on out. He's been working so hard, I told him not to come tonight. I'm sorry. He'll be here.
Ben, if you're watching, you can just call me.
I apologize.
No, I can follow up with Ben. Thank you.
I will, yes, we will make sure people are notified.
All right. Is there any old business?
Can I ask one more thing? In your report, you said you had an update on Stillwater Crossings. Is there any updates?
No significant changes. There's still, they expect Randall Homes to break ground before the end of the year. We've gotten a few more building permits in on the south side. I think they're still working on whether or not they want to present some changes to the north side before that is considered. I think mainly it's timing. It's trying to get everything built they can this year. I know lumber prices are dropping, but they're still, even to where they've dropped, that was an all-time high other than the last 60 days or 90 days, whatever. So that's still a concern.
Did see them pumping concrete the other day. Looks like they're putting foundation in.
All right. Any old business?
This might be old business. I can't remember if yeah, I think I did bring it up. So did you guys notice the pots downtown?
Yes.
All right.
They look great.
I want to thank Rotary. They are awesome. They paid and donated all those pots down there. And it was a significant cost, only because they are a self-watering pot. So they have a reservoir in the bottom like this deep with like a wicking system. So those fill up at the bottom and then they continue to water throughout the summer. And it's been a blessing that they're there. We don't have to walk around and water with our jugs. And they're really nice pots. We can leave them out all winter long and decorate them for Christmas. They're a lifetime guarantee and they're really nice. They actually look heavy, but they're pretty easy to move. I mean, they have a lot of dirt and water, but I'm just grateful and thankful to the Rotary. And we're gonna get a little kind of like a plaque or an emblem to put on the side of it, you know, saying donated by Rotary. But so yeah, just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome.
Oh, actually, I have one more thing. This might be new business. Well, sorry,
So
I'm jumping
more-
ahead.
Any additional old business?
Yes,
Sorry.
I'm James Green. I brought it back to you all, brought it to you about 2.5, 3 years ago about that single wide trailer people living in town. And y'all want to clean this place up? Huh?
Downtown.
Yeah, downtown, right across from you, out back. You know about it. I mean, you talked about that a couple of years ago, and everybody up here knows about it. And Ben said he's going to leave it up to him. He didn't want to get involved in that.
I'm not sure I'm aware of the situation, but I have a feeling I'm going to be.
Yeah.
I would say to the citizens, bring your list to the next meeting.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that-
this has been brought up last.
Okay, well, let's get it on a list.
Since October.
Let's get it on a list, because I kind of generally remember you talking about it, but I couldn't tell you the address. So let's have a list of addresses.
They know address.
Well, then how are we going to find it if
Is it
there's no
behind Marmy's
address?
Go
Pantry?
right, you have to go back in the back alley.
Okay, well, we still need to know where it is and what the violation is. And if those are written down, we can keep track of it. So next meeting,
Behind the Bus Theater at multiple
okay,
times.
so next meeting, that can't be the only violation, is what I'm getting at.
Probably not.
So make a list, and then those will be some that we can look at to enforce.
All right, and Scott, you and the mayor is trustees over at New Platte over there, right?
Correct.
Why ain't they mowing over there? I mean, people done talked to me about it, said this looked like a wilderness over there.
All right, I'll get with somebody about that.
I mean, drive by and look at it.
All right. Thank you. All right. Any new business?
Okay, this is my new business. And this is again so last workshop, I may have brought up third Thursdays. So we're trying to implement a little event, third Thursdays of each month downtown. And for July, we decided July's busy, people are on vacation, it's just kind of crazy, so we're gonna bypass July. Starting in August, we're gonna really jump in full gear and try to get it going. So we have a lot of food trucks coming the third Thursday of August downtown, and then we're searching for a band. So just to keep it simple, we're gonna have the shops open, have a band, a bunch of food trucks, you know, just bring people down there to hang out and listen to some music. So if you know of a worthy band,
What
drop
time?
me a shout out and I'll see.
What time will that start?
It will be from, I think the food trucks are gonna start setting up at 4, but the event will probably be like 5 to 8.
All right.
So kind of 4 to 8, 5 to 8, around there. But the more food trucks we have, the better.
You want contact info on food trucks?
Whatever you
Awesome.
got,
Okay.
send them my way.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I'm really looking for just not a band, but just some singers, whatever. Nothing too crazy, but just,
The food truck owners might know of like live music
they
also.
might. That's a good idea.
That they've come
Yeah.
across.
I'm on a Facebook group with the Ohio food truck people. So, that's a good idea to ask them. Yeah. That's my new business.
All right. Any additional new business? Any comments by citizens?
I just have a question. Along with the residents, are you going to look at businesses for the violations?
Yes.
That will be in the first week?
I don't know that. I would guess it would depend on the list that I have and which violations and how clear the ordinances are. Going to try to hit the most egregious, long-standing
There's
first.
some businesses that need to be cleaned up too.
Okay.
Yeah, John Hayes, I just comment about your code. When I moved here October of 2014, I came in and I asked if there was a copy of the ordinances to what I could do and what I couldn't do. And I was told at that time, there's too many of them, just ask when you want to do something. Now, are you going to make some of those code violations available so people know ahead of time if they want to go ahead and do something on their property?
If I'm understanding your questions, I think most of the violations that we're going to be dealing with initially are pretty obvious. They're not going to be questionable whether or not they're allowed to do it. That's why one of the first steps is educational. If they honestly don't know that they're in violation, the first step is to make them aware and then give them time to make a cleanup.
Well, the reason I ask is some cities I've lived in, signs were against the law. Clotheslines in some areas were against the law,
Sure.
and that's the kind of things I was interested in, but nobody would tell me anything.
The code here is larger than any place I've ever worked. And
Nobody's aware of what it is.
No one
it just
enforces
is. It needs updated and organized and. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. At one point, we were talking about trying to put the code in a searchable format on the
Yes.
website, which would be great for
Yes, it would be
citizens.
awesome.
But I know we don't have our website updated or any of that info available. But is there a searchable option for the code somehow?
No,
Not currently.
No, it has to be put into like a PDF, and that normally happens through, I think, the publisher or something like that, whoever. I got asked why. I was like, well, I get bored at night and I like to fall asleep reading something, and I figured that'd be worthwhile, so.
It's like this thick.
Yeah.
That was kind of my question earlier is, are there 4 or are there 97? And he said, well, I wish it was only 97. So if there's a specific question that you have, then we could probably answer it. But to give you all the ordinances is quite a task.
I believe the library has an up-to-date copy, I believe. At least I thought I read somewhere that we were keeping a copy in the library.
I would expect that we do.
And I bet it's available.
Oh, yes. No one's got it checked out yet. All right, Mr. Green?
One of your older mayors said if you want to know the ordinance, a copy of them, come down and they can borrow the book and then bring it back from you all. That's one of your older mayors.
I'm not aware of that policy. I guess that would be up to the council. Typically, those books are pretty expensive, so you don't let them leave City Hall. You let someone can review it if they want while they're there. You can even make copies of some of it if you're willing to pay the cost of copying. But that would be a policy that would be entirely up to the mayor and council.
Because I guess it had been done in the future,
Sure.
or in the past.
Yeah.
People that.
You're right, yes.
Well, if, check the library, it's definitely going to be, it should be available there, and if it's not, then that's something that we probably need to know, and then, spend that money to get a copy in there, because having it at the library is a good place. And I don't know why I didn't think, because one of the things I was thinking is, why didn't I think to look at the library? But, all right. So any additional new business? All right. Comments by citizens? Seeing none. There's an executive session
Yes, sir.
that is needed. All right.
What ordinance?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I would like to make a motion that council enters into a brief executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, or discipline of a public employee and official.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Dews,
Yes.
Cobb,
Yes.
Hurst,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Metz,
Yes.
and Tracy.
Yes.
All right, thank you. We'll now adjourn into an executive session. There'll be no additional legislation passed or anything done after the executive session. You guys are free to stay if you'd like. But we're now adjourned.